Hello, welcome to the Joe Cortez Show here in Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment and boxing capital of the world. Well, today we have a special guest. As you can see, today's Happy Valentine's to all you beautiful people up there, all the people that I love so much, and all the people that love me, and those that hate me as well. I love you guys. We have a special guest today, a prominent individual who grew up with me up in New York back in the days, back in my fighting days. He's a little much younger than me, but he's here to talk a little bit about his career, what he's doing with boxing these days, and what he did in the past. And again, my co-host today, Shelly Stevens, my co-host for almost a year now. Jimmy Kinney is our dear guest, my champ right here, Jimmy Kinney. Right here, Jimmy Kinney, the champ, undisputed champ, unbelievable. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Okay, it's nice you're here in Las Vegas with your beautiful wife, Laura. She's from Puerto Rico, and you're here in Las Vegas, visiting, having a good little vacation. And I heard that you ran into one of our former world champions today.
You know, coming to Vegas, I knew I was going to see some boxing people, and we connected again.
Yeah.
I looked up Paul Spadafora, who a friend of mine's friend manages, or he trains fighters for him. And then today I bumped into Kevin Kelly of Flushing Flash, who I remember fighting in the Golden Gloves in the late 80s.
Yeah, he was
New York City.
Yeah, he became two-time world champion.
He did.
But he had a great fight with Prince Nassim Ahmed. A great fight. They were both got dropped in that fight.
He mentioned that to me. He mentioned that he fought the Prince, but yeah.
And one of our good colleagues, Benji Esteves, was the referee.
My mentor.
Yeah.
Very special guy, very special friend, Benji Esteves.
I worked with Benji when he was starting on the amateurs. He was there with a beautiful wife, Nelsie. They were ringside, and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, I see you're Benji's wife, right?" She said, "Yeah." "When is he coming out?" "He'll be out shortly." And then when he saw me sitting at ringside watching him fight, he says he was so nervous because I was sitting there at ringside, but he turned out to be one of the best referees in boxing. And he's a Hall of Famer now, and we're very proud of him, Benji Esteves.
Yeah.
He retired this year, by the way.
He did. And what a lot of people wouldn't know about Benji, and I'm glad to say, he mentored a lot of referees, especially in the amateurs.
Right.
Many of them went on to the pros. But Benji was not only a great referee himself, he taught a lot of other individuals how to be an official, be a referee, and he was great at it.
Yeah, he was also a great individual. He got a good heart.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how did you get started in boxing?
How did boxing find me?
Yeah.
How did boxing start with me? You know, from the age of 12, I was watching the fights on TV, mid-'60s, late '60s, '67, '68, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, Jerry Quarry, all of them. And I loved boxing, and I always wanted to box. And growing up in New York, I grew up in Yonkers, New York, in a dead-end street near a park, and tried to play sports and wasn't too good. And the lure of the streets and hanging out kind of was a little stronger than my commitment to boxing. So I didn't box, and I got in a little trouble as a kid, as a juvenile. And I wound up going in the Army. And I almost boxed in the Army. I wanted to, but again, partying, this is the 70s now. Mm-hmm. And so I come home from the Army, and finally, I go into the gym. I go to the Yonkers PAL, the Police Athletic League. Because when I come home from the Army, and Joe, you know the New York story, half of my friends were dead, half were in prison, and half were doing drugs. So the choices I had was, try to find work. And I just thought, let me give a shot at boxing. And I went into the gym, Yonkers PAL. I was in good shape because I had just come home from the Army. And Frank Caserta, whose brother Charlie Caserta trained like 42 Golden Glove champions in New York. Frankie was a great trainer. Sal Carenti ran the Yonkers PAL. Right. And I trained a few months, and I was sparring and training. I signed up for the 1981 Golden Gloves. I actually had my physical. I actually had my first card to they send you a notice, you're going to fight on this date. And I left the gym one day and went back to the streets. And that was 81. 86, I get in a little trouble. Thank God, I was very lucky. I had a lot of great people in my life, my family. Always people were trying to help me, steer me in the right direction. I don't know what made me do it. I got in a little trouble, got arrested. I go down to Yonkers PAL. I don't know what drew me there. It was like a divine intervention. And I walk in the gym, And Ronaldo Snipes, a heavyweight from Yonkers, fought Larry Holmes for the world title. He's sparring with Ike Padilla, a 3-time New York Golden Glove champion. And there's young kids boxing. You hear the speed bag and guys skipping rope. And Sal Corrente's there, and he turns around and looks at me and says, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "Sal, you remember me?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You want to box?" I go, "Sal, I'm 30. I couldn't box when I was 20. And he said, "If you want a place to come here." And I started going to the Yonkers PAL. I was 30 years old every day for 5 years.
That's awesome.
And it saved my life. It saved me from, the crime, the drugs, the jail. That story could have been my story. And I just started helping kids. I was a gopher in the gym. I had no real experience, but did have me help glove the kids. Eventually, Sal had me take kids to the doctor. We had young boxers fighting internationally. I'd take them to the airport, pick them up at the airport. And I was at all the Golden Glove fights. And about a year into this, Sal called me outside the gym one day, and I thought I was in trouble. He goes, "What are you going to do with boxing?" I go, "Sal, it was never meant for me to be a boxer." And he goes, "No, why don't you become an amateur boxing referee?" I go, "I never thought of it." And he sent me to Benji Estevez, who was the chief of officials for New York Metro, right. USA Boxing. But my father was dying of cancer at the time, and I held off. And my father eventually passed away, but I went to a clinic, an officials clinic, where they train you how to be an amateur referee, judge, timekeeper, all the rules. And Raleigh Schwartz, Benji had arranged for Raleigh Schwartz to come in and do this clinic. And I did not know who he was, but he was the team manager for the 1972 Olympic team. Sugar Ray Leonard, Spinks Brothers, Leo Randolph, Howard Davis, how could I forget? And he did, it was enticing, but I didn't become an official at that time. And again, Sal Corrente, who not only saved my life, gave me, I saw what he was doing with kids, and I just thought, this is something positive. We're keeping kids, out of trouble. Again, he called me in his office one day and goes, "Hey, Jim, do you know the man who sets up the boxing ring?" I go, "Yeah, the old man, Bob Crimmins." He was 82 years old. He set the ring up for 45 years in New York. He did all the New York Golden Gloves. In fact, he told me the ring, every world champion from New York and other places was in that ring since 1955, starting with Floyd Patterson. Yeah. And he needed someone to help him do the business. And I went to meet him, and I pull up to his house in Pelham, New York. He's sitting on the porch reading the newspaper, and he says to me, "You can't make this stuff up." He goes, "You look familiar. What jails you been in?" And I just said, because a lot of guys in boxing get in trouble, and then they get out of trouble, and some of them, unfortunately, get back in trouble. But I worked with him for a year, setting up the ring all over New York. We did some pro shows. We did the New York Golden Gloves. And I was at the show, watching the fights, getting paid, not getting punched. And after a year, I took over the business, and I ran that business for 5 years. And I got to meet everyone, boxers, trainers, managers, seconds, cutmen, round card girls, ring announcers, promoters. It was a world of boxing, and I was a part of it. And it was really a gift, because for a kid from a dead-end street in Yonkers who tried and failed, my life had some purpose and direction. Boxing gave me that.
Now, you've been involved in boxing for a while. What good advice can you give our young fighters that are watching out there, young viewers and parents? What good advice?
Over the years, and after that, I became an amateur official. I became a professional boxing judge. So I've been around well over 30 years. I always say this. Boxing gives young men, and now today women's boxing has become very big, direction, discipline, purpose. It gives them confidence, and it helps them stay out of trouble. And you can vent aggression, for the people who gravitate to boxing sometimes. And it just turns your life around. And just even bumping into Kevin Kelly today, his life is good today. I know a lot of boxers that went on to successful careers. And boxing gave them that foundation in life that they might not have found growing up in the city or anywhere, urban areas. The advice is train hard, learn what you can, because it also transfers over to life skills.
Good. That's true. I'm one of those that could have gone the wrong way myself. I got involved when I was 15 years old. Never got in any trouble. Never got arrested because I joined boxing at a young age of 15. And I got the great Gaspar Indian Ortega, who moved to my neighborhood. He was a welterweight contender and fought some of the great ones, including Emma Griffith for the title back in 1961. But I met Gaspar when I was 12 years old, back in 1955. And that was the beginning of my career. And I tell you parents out there watching, you young folks out there, you know, if I did it, you guys can do it too. You know, it takes a lot of determination, but it's important that you get involved with sports. It doesn't necessarily have to be boxing. It can be any sport. But I chose boxing because of Gaspar Ortega. But I tell you, you parents out there watching, and you young folks watching, you want to stay on the right track, do the right thing, get involved with some kind of sport. Because it keep you occupied, it teaches you discipline, self-esteem, your confidence level, all builds with the sports, you know. And for me with boxing, as you well know, my brother Mike and I were Golden Glove champions, won the New York Cenobas, the Spanish Golden Gloves twice, the Eastern Championship, then the Open Championships, and the National Intercity Golden Gloves, which was New York versus Chicago. That was the National Golden Gloves back in 1961. I remember back in 1961, the ring that I got here, I won this ring for the Eastern Golden Glove Championship in Madison Square Garden. And that night, there were 12,400 fans there. And my brother Mike and I won the Eastern Championship, but I had the honor of knocking out both opponents the same night in Madison Square Garden. You check around to see who knocked out two guys the same night in Madison Square Garden, you can't find nobody.
Right.
You know? And I was honored for that. But boxing kept me on the right track. I'm not trying to brag about myself. I'm just trying to tell you guys, if you're young folks out there watching, I would inspire you to do something positive, just like Gaspar Ortega inspired my brother Mike and I to get into boxing. So, you know, boxing is a good sport to get involved with. And I'm glad you got involved, Jimmy, with boxing at a young age. Benji Estevez, I met Benji when he was coming up in the amateur ranks. And then he turned pro in 1992, the year I moved out to Las Vegas. And that was about 34 years ago.
Wow.
So here I am still in Las Vegas. I still got a little spark of the old flash. Yeah.
You know, I read something about you that really touched me because you have this in common with Joe. You both have rescued people from fires. That's incredible to think that both of you sitting here have like the same story because you did it and you did it in
I didn't know
states.
we both did it.
Yeah.
And I
know?
forgot that part of that write-up.
That touched me. It did. He rescued people, you rescued people, and it's just, how did that happen?
You know, it's a great story. It was March, I believe, of '89. I was a mailman in New Rochelle, New York. And I did a Golden Glove show the night before. I believe it was a Wednesday. So I was somewhere in New York City on Tuesday night doing the ring. I probably got home 1 or 2 in the morning. I remember I was on my mail route and I was exhausted. And it was a very cold winter day in New York. There was snow and ice on the ground. And I'm on my last street delivering mail. And I'm coming down the block, and all of a sudden I hear windows breaking. And I thought someone was breaking in a car or something. I turned and looked, this building was on fire. At the top of the building, it was like a 6-apartment, 3-family walk-up. And the roof was engulfed in flames, and I looked and I go, oh my God. So there was a business at this house I was at. I ran behind the house, dropped my mail bag, told them to call 911, and I ran across the street, and I'm saying, there's no way I'm going in this building. And I ran up to the porch, and a woman pulls up in a car with a baby, comes running up, and almost ran in the building. I stopped. I go, you can't go in there. My 2-year-old's on the 2nd floor.
Oh, my.
I said, wait here. I ran up to the 2nd floor. There was smoke coming down from the top. I just touched the door. My adrenaline was probably going so much. The door flings open. There's a grandmother with her 2-year-old, I guess, granddaughter or grandson in a carriage. I go, come on, get your coat. You got to get out of here. So I grabbed the baby, and I helped the grandmother out down the stairs. And I turned and I go, is everyone out? And there was an old man on top of the stairs. He had rickets, couldn't walk. And I ran up and grabbed him and carried him down the stairs. And when I came out with him, the roof was falling on the porch above us. I mean, it's like a scene in a movie.
Wow.
And the firemen finally got there. And there's like 50 people, 100 people. And I stood there saying, wow, I can't believe I did this. And Fireman came. I go, look, I think everyone's out. And there was a dog in the yard. You could see on the alleyway, there was a dog tied to a fence. I went and got my mailbag. I cut through all these people. By now, there's 100-something people watching this fire. And I get to my car. We had park and loop routes. I get to my car with my mail, and I had the mail for the house I was at when I saw the fire. And I go back through the crowd, and I see a woman. I go, here's your mail. I almost missed you today. Yeah, this is funny. So I go and get in my car, and I go back, and I had some smoke inhalation. I went home, and where did I go? I go down to Yonkers PAO. And, the kids were training, and I was just hanging around. I tell Sal Correnti, I go, it wasn't a regular day at work today. I go, this house went on fire, and I carried a 2-year-old baby out and helped these 2 elderly people. And that house burned to the ground. There wasn't an inch of the foundation left. The next day, the firemen were still there. And I got honored a lot for that. I was on New York. Oh, my God, I can't remember the woman's name right now. It will come to me. I was on Channel 5.
All right.
Not news. Oh, gosh. Good Day, New York. It was one of the channels, and I can't remember. Her name will come to me, maybe. And then I was in the papers, and I got a couple of awards for that. In fact, you know what award I got for that? It was 1990, a year later. Steve Acunto from the Association of Improvement for Boxing, American Association for the Improvement, honored me at one of his boxing dinners for that act of helping save those people in the fire. And I was at the boxing dinner, and I was just a guy in the PAL helping out. You didn't think there was anyone famous or anyone important.
Did the postmaster reward you with anything?
I'll tell you, it really was a big thing. Nita Lowey, or the congresswoman, came to New Rochelle. They put a plaque in the post office. And then I got honored by the National Association of Letter Carriers, the Letter Carriers Union, in Washington, D.C. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, came with me. And they treated me like a superstar. I was a National Hero of the Year. And then they had an Eastern hero, a Midwestern hero, and a Western, East Coast, Midwestern, and West Coast hero. And they treated us like, because the president of the union always said we were the ambassadors of the federal government, being a mailman, delivering mail every neighborhood in the United States. And he really shined the light on what letter carriers do in the community. They don't just deliver the mail, they look out for people. And sometimes they save people's lives.
You're undisputed champion for sure.
That was, that was a God thing. I mean, that was something you do, and you sit back and say, wow, I don't believe I did that. But where the strength came and the courage, it's unlike your own. It came from somewhere, and, I'm a believer in God. Yes. I believe with some things happen in my life, that's definitely an example.
I wonder how the 2-year-old is doing today. An adult, probably married.
What could have been different if I had not been there?
Yeah, exactly.
I think of that every now and then.
Yeah, one day I was driving through. I was working. I was driving on my way home in the Bronx, and I saw as I'm driving through the Bronx, there was a 6-story apartment building, and there was a fire escape. I looked up. There was a fire coming out of a window, smoke coming out of a window. I wondered what. So I stopped. I pulled over. I ran up the stairs real quick. I started banging on the doors on the 3rd floor. Nobody was answering. I came back downstairs. The fire escape, I had the fire escape to the front, with the ladder hanging there, and I jumped up to the ladder, and I climbed up. I went up to the fire escape, to the 3rd floor. I pulled the window down, I jumped inside, put smoking. It was really, I couldn't hardly breathe, but I jumped in there, and it was like a 1-bedroom apartment. And I went in there, and it was kind of empty, but that's what door. I opened up the door. It was another bedroom. There was a lady sleeping in the bed, an old lady. Wow. So I got the lady, man, there's a fire, and I got out of the bed, and I carried it downstairs to the ground level. Made it downstairs, and then all the people staying in front of the building. Then I heard the fire trucks are coming, and the fire trucks all got there. I got the lady, I said, "You okay, miss?" He was like 80 years old, 90 years old. And I left her there with the rest of the people there, and they said, "She's okay." And I heard the fire trucks were all coming up with the fire hose, and I got back in my car and I got home, and then when I got home, and my wife said, "Well, you smell like fire." I said, "Well, let me tell you," and I told her the whole story. I said, "Wow," but that was a reward for me because I was able to help people out there.
Right.
I was at the right place at the right time. Yeah. One was the old lady. She probably would have died of a smoke inhalation.
Sure. Thank God. Right?
Anyway, going back to our boxing day, okay, we did that's a little side story we had that you had in common. But talking about what you had in common, I was a 6-time Golden Glove champion, and I turned pro, and I had an 18-1 as a professional. And I said to myself, boxing was good because it got me on the right track. It was the beginning of my life. When I was 15 years of age, had I not gotten into boxing, I probably would have ended up dead from overdose of drugs. A lot of my friends were all dying of drugs. Some of them were in jail for murder, for whatever. I took the right direction. Gaspar Ortega took me over and said, Joe, you guys can't be involved with those guys. Those guys are no good. We used to go up on the rooftop. We used to fly pigeons. We had a pigeon coop up there. We used to fly pigeons, just like Mike Tyson.
Sure.
I used to do the same thing. One day I had a conversation with Mike Tyson about pigeons. We started talking about the triplets, different breeds, triplets, the black flight, the brown flight, the baldies, and all kinds of. The clinkers are the ones that you find about City Hall. Those are clinkers. Those birds ain't worth nothing. We like the white ones, the brown ones, the triplets, the tumblers, all kinds of birds that we should have when we fly in New York City on the rooftop. But I remember Mike Tyson saw me one day. We were in China. I was doing a seminar. He was out there, and I was refereeing some fights as well. And he was talking about pigeons. When I got into the conversation, I heard talking about pigeons. Let me get in here. I got in a conversation, started talking to him about different pigeons, and Mike was saying, wow, Joe, how you know so much about pigeons? I said, Mike, I did the same thing before you were born. I was flying pigeons, talking about being born. Before time, there's a fighter by the name of Joe Cortez who got knocked out by Mike Tyson. That is not me. That's a heavyweight named Mike Tyson. I was never a heavyweight. I was a bantamweight and featherweight. I was never weighted more than 122 pounds as a professional fighter. Mike Tyson was fighting heavyweight. So that Joe Cortez who got knocked out was not me. By the way, I never even hit the canvas in my amateur or professional career. Okay? So Joe Cortez, if you're watching out there, you didn't have the chin that I had because I never went down. So
That's
anyway,
great.
I'm so happy to meet you because, first of all, you're from the East Coast and you have something to do with Jersey, right? And I was born in Jersey.
Oh, awesome.
I grew up in Philly, but I spent a lot of time living in New York, And eventually, after I married my husband, he used to watch boxing, big boxing fan. He would point out everything that was going on, all the referees, the fighters, this, that, and the other. And one night we were performing here in Vegas, and this man walks in the door, and I had my back facing him. I was facing my husband, and I always tell the story because my husband looked like he was having a heart attack while in the middle of dinner. He's like, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he goes, you won't believe who walked in the door, and it was Joe, right? And ever since then, it's like it was love at first sight. We became family. We love him and his family.
Awesome.
Just want to say happy Valentine's Day to Sylvia, his beautiful wife. Yeah. And of course, my honey, Wesley, happy Valentine's Day. See you later. But I just want to say that it's such a pleasure to meet you. I love all of Joe's friends and his guests, and I learned so much from each one of them. So it's very nice today.
It's amazing how boxing connects us.
Yeah, it does. So much.
So Jimmy, tell me a little bit about your days back in New York, in Yonkers. I had a deli in Yonkers on Nepperhan Avenue.
Yes.
And there was a precision valve company, a factory right across the street. You worked for them for a while?
No. Good old Yonkers, though. I walked into your store, I believe it was 1988, Joe. And it was probably before you were doing big TV fights, but you had the New York Golden Gloves on. And I said, hey, you won the New York Golden Gloves? And you told me, yeah. And I said hello to you. You told me your name. And I was setting the ring up at that time. I was doing the Golden Gloves with the ring business. And then I bumped into you, I don't know how many times since then, probably a few dozen. And then through all our friends in New York, Benji and everyone else.
But the last time I saw you, I believe was the last year at the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. In St. Petersburg, Florida, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
Very good time. And we offer our condolences to Brian Carey. His wife, Phyllis, passed away 2 days ago. Brian Carey, we offer our condolences. And those of you fans out there watching, Brian Carey, a great referee, retired from Florida. I was talking to him the night before last. He was holding her hand. She was still alive. And then last night I called him. He said, Joe, she passed away this afternoon. So we offer our condolences for Brian Carey. We love you and hope you have a great weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, Brian Carey. So I saw you out in Florida back then. I'm going again this year to see to support the inductees this year.
Oh, yeah.
They're having a nice that's going to be in June, I believe. Yeah.
I came down that year to support Joey Negron, Jose Negron from Connecticut.
Right.
He fought John Molina, world champion.
Yeah.
He was a success. He had a good record as a pro, but he was inducted, and I came with him, and that was a good weekend. And you spoke that night, Friday night, and I learned more about your story. It was great.
Yeah, I was a speaker that night, And John Molina was there too, I believe.
They inducted Ozzy Ocasio, Alfredo Escalera, and gosh, who else was there? A couple of Puerto Rican fighters.
John Molina was there that night. He was from Fajardo, Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Yeah, John Molina, good fighter. Yeah, we get to meet a lot of people at these Hall of Fame events.
Yes.
They have a Hall of Fame coming up here in April for the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. I think it's the Women's Boxing Hall of Fame.
Is that right?
In Nevada, in April, and keeping us going a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be in the presence of all these Hall of Fame boxing people. This is like such a treat. This interview was beautiful.
For you viewers out there watching, in September, I'll be inducted to the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame.
Sure.
I believe it's September 28th, I believe. And it's going to be a great weekend. So if you guys are in the neighborhood on the East Coast, Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame will be a great year for the inductees and for the boxing community. Yeah.
There's a lot of activities coming up. March 23rd is a New York State Boxing Hall of Fame put on by Ring 8.
Right.
That's March 23rd. And a week later, March 30th, is a fundraiser for Bobby Ches, former cruiserweight, middleweight champion. He's battling a health condition now. They're having a fundraiser for him on March 30th in New Jersey. There's a lot of good things that the boxing community does for boxers.
Yeah, Bobby Ches, I refereed a couple of times, and I remember him. He was trained by Lou Duva.
Yes.
He was from New Jersey, and Bobby Ches was a pretty decent light heavyweight.
The Totowa Ice Rink, where they fought on TV back in the day.
Totowa, New Jersey,
Yeah, they had a lot of champions. That was when the ESPN was running USA Boxing Tuesday night fights.
Right. Well, back in those days, we were doing fights on Tuesday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, they was boxing like 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes I had to go down to Atlantic City, and I had to referee up there. And the whole weekend, I would book the whole weekend. I would stay there because it was 3.5 hour drive from Yonkers, New York, to Atlantic City. So I would stay there the whole weekend. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And sometimes it was Tuesday. It was like crazy.
The good old days.
Yeah, and we were working steady. I mean, I had about over 1,000 professional fights in my whole career.
Right.
And I never counted, but people tell me that BoxRec got me there for like 990 some odd professional fights. But I said, but BoxRec had to be turning pro in 1979, when actually I turned pro in 1977. So I did many fights in New York City. Because New York City, it gave me a license in 1977, and that's the year that I started my professional career. It was just amazing. It was just it's like a dream come true. Right. My dream was to do one world title fight, and my first world title fight was 5 years later. I refereed Aaron Pryor and Miguel Montilla in Atlantic City. It was one of the great nights of boxing. But anyway, Jimmy, bringing you here on my show today is very special to me because not every day I get somebody who's an ex-boxer involved with boxing, done so much for the community. But, you're here like a brother, man, Yeah. It really means a lot to me. You come out to visit. We stay in touch, and we have to, if somebody wants to reach you for anything, how can they reach you for anything we do with boxing?
I'll tell you what, I was a professional boxing judge, but 3 years ago I had some health problems, and I stopped judging. And that's okay. I walked away with a smile because boxing was very good to me. I'm involved now in trying to help befriend the Boxing Exchange Network. It's in New York. It's a website, theboxingexchange.net. We're trying to do, a lot of boxing websites have articles, interviews, maybe some results of fights. This is going to be more functional and interactive, and a historical part into boxing history. That's what I like now, so I follow that. So the Boxing Exchange Network, if you email them, they can get in touch with me.
Great. What's the email again?
theboxingexchangenetwork.net.
Okay, great. Okay, fans, well, thank you so much for joining us this week. Again, Jimmy Kinney and beautiful wife Laura, who came up to visit us. Laura.
Happy Valentine's, Laura.
Happy Valentine's Day to you. And all you fans out there, happy Valentine's Day. Love you all. See you next week.
See you at Lola's tomorrow night.
Lola's tomorrow night,
All
yep,
right.
from 6 to 10.
That's right.
Take care.